In this section of the pattern, you have an option to make a folded trim, the double fabric, structured with the seam. Seam is differently done here, and there's slip stitches here to give it just more structure. So you have that option, and then for a little bit of lighter feel, you have a single fabric option, and I will teach you how to make the seam. This one doesn't have the seam too. It doesn't stretch further than this. And there is a decorative embellishment right here. Looks like a double fabric that hides the seam. This one doesn't hide the seam. It's just there for decorative purposes. So choose what you like. This I would recommend for lighter sweaters, short sleeve sweaters. This is if you decide to work the same sweater in heftier yarns, woolly wools, something like that for the winter, but still light. I would go for this neckline. So choose what you like. This is what it looks like. This is the single one. You can make it shorter, you can make it a little longer. It's up to you. You can skip this step. You will see it in the video. And then this one, again, you can make it shorter or longer. It's up to you. But this is what it is. Single layer rib. Take the smallest needles as identified in the pattern, have a beginning of the round stitch marker, and let's start casting on. Instead of a slip knot, wrap the yarn around the needle like that. And start casting on using long tail method. The total amount of stitches is cast on. Please make sure the stitches are not twisted around the cable, and get ready to join the working around. To use the seamless method of joining, what you need to do is align the stitches. Again, make sure they're not twisted. Keep the yarn, the tail and the working yarn at the back of the work. Slip the first stitch off of the right needle onto the left needle, like so. Purlwise. Slip the second stitch on the left needle over the first one, or pass it over. And now slip the first stitch off the left needle onto the right needle. One stitch is decreased and we join the working around, and this will be seamless. Do you see the direction of the stitches is identical? Now you have to make sure that the tail lies over the working yarn like that. Just bring it to the front and keep it there. And now move on to the setup round. Place beginning of the round stitch marker, knit one stitch, tighten it all up, purl 2 stitches. We're setting up for 2x2 rib. It's not easy to work with silk, merino and silk. Would have been easier to choose cotton or linen. Okay, knit one stitch, purl 2 stitches. That's the beginning of the round. And now on to the repeat. Knit 2 stitches, purl 2 stitches. Repeat that until 3 stitches before the beginning of the round marker. right here, and you will purl 2 stitches and knit 1 stitch. So just follow instructions in a pattern and complete the setup round, and then repeat the setup round for whatever is identified in the pattern. It's 0.75 inches. I have worked the neckline trim for 0.75 inches or 1.9 centimeters. And now I'm ready for the seamless seam. The seamless seam, you will need the needles you made the gauge with. In my case, it's 2.75 millimeters or size 2. And you also will need 4 to 5 sizes up needle tip. This one is size US size 5, 3.75 millimeter tip. So this is what I will be working with. At this point, I will remove the beginning of the round stitch marker, only because I'm switching to larger needles. And set up and round number 1 of seamless seam, you just knit all stitches. Last few stitches, and we're ready for round number 2. Put these away. You're not going to need them any longer, the needles that you work the trim with. And now you need the needle tip, 4 to 5 sizes larger. If 4 sizes up will not work for you, meaning after you will bind off the stitches and you try the neckline, the trim on, just fit it through your head. See if it goes without any trouble over your head. If it doesn't, you will have to undo it, go 1 size larger needle tip, and bind off stitches again. So let's do that. We will be casting off stitches knitwise, and at the end of the round you will have 1 stitch left on the needle tip. So let's do that. Just keep binding off stitches. Make sure you slide it onto the thicker part so the stitch is large enough. And this is what we're doing. We're just binding off stitches, and you will have the future seam, and it's pretty rigid. This is why we're going a few sizes up with the needle tip. Keep doing that until the end of the round. I have 1 stitch left on my needle tip, and why don't you go ahead and try the neckline on. Just elongate the stitch and try it on. I'll wait. Does it fit? Okay, let's continue. If it doesn't fit, well, you're gonna have to undo this and get the larger tip and just do it all over again. What we need to do to finish round 2 is to knit this stitch like that. And now keeping it at the back of the work, kind of, sort of. Just switch it to the other side because it'll be easier. Take the needles that you freed when you cast off stitches. And let's start round number 3. We're going to cast on stitches that we bound off. And the first, so we need to insert the needle tip of the needles that we freed, the the size 2, 2.75 millimeter needles, or whatever you made the gauge with. And we need to insert it into the first stitch of the round, which is this one. The stitch marker is still there, but this is the last column of the last stitches, and this is the column of all the first stitches of the round. We knit the first round, so this first stitch is right here, and we will be working with every knit stitch, every consecutive knit stitch under the bind off. This one, I'm going to try and show it to you. This one, this one. So right under the bind off. This is the first stitch under the bind off, right there. This one. Insert the needle from front to back into the stitch. Slip the stitch off of the, whether the needle is still positioned whichever way doesn't matter. If you're still holding it this way or this way, it really doesn't matter. So what you need to do is slip it purlwise off of the needle tip and set aside. We don't need the tip any longer. Tighten the stitch up and bring it through the stitch to the front, like that. And then insert, from now on you will be repeating the same step. Insert the needle tip from the front of the work to the back of the work into the next stitch, and it will be this column here, right there. Wrap the yarn around the needle and bring it to the front, like so. If you find it, keep the stitches on the needle, of course. It is in a pattern, but just in case you didn't know, it's in a pattern, and you keep it on the needle. If you have trouble doing that with the needle, the trusty crochet hook is here, and what you need to do is insert the crochet hook into the next stitch under the bind off, this one, from front to back. Grab the yarn, bring it to the front, place it on the needle, release, and keep going like that until you have the same amount of stitches on the needle as you bound off or cast off. Make sure you do not miss a stitch. So each column, the ribbing will help you. There will be 2 stitches per each rib. And just don't miss a stitch, please. It has to be the same number of stitches. So keep going like that to the end of the round, casting on stitches. And this creates this beautiful seam, and it's pretty rigid and it will stay put. So the neckline trim will stretch. This never will, and there's enough yarn there to keep it steady, but to give it a bit of a stretch like that. See what I mean? I will show you what it looks like at the end of the round. It helps to pull the seam slightly so you can get into the next stitch easier, like that, and it will just go faster. And you see the stitches that you have to insert the needle into easier, much easier. And that's the seam. I cast on all of the stitches, double check, they all match. Now place beginning of the round stitch marker. And if you would like, so this is what the seam looks like right there. And it doesn't let you go past a certain stretch point, which is what we want right there. This is the point of no return. So the next 4 rounds are optional. If you feel that this is all you want or can handle, keep on, go to the next section. If you want to work the next 4 rounds, I will show you what to do and what they look like, and you will know if you want it in your sweater or you want to skip that little part. The decorative part after the seam is done in 5 rounds. So this is round number 4. We slip the stitch marker and we knit all of the stitches of this round. Round number 5. Increase round, stitches doubled. So what we're going to be doing is keep the yarn at the back, slip, stitch purlwise with the yarn at the back, bring it to the front, and, well, actually, hold on. Don't bring it to the front. With the yarn at the back, insert the needle into the stitch below, just worked stitch for the first stitch on the right needle tip, and purl that stitch. With the yarn at the back, slip, stitch knitwise, pick up the stitch from the stitch below, the first stitch on the right needle tip, and purl it. Repeat this to the end of the round. I've doubled the stitches and I'm ready to work on round number 6. Can you pick up these stitches from behind the seam and make it really truly the seam hiding inside the double fabric? Yes, you can. You'll just have to pick up the stitches from behind the seam, not from the first row that we worked. So skip row number 4 in this case, and instead of knitting stitches, because that's where we create the stitch below, and just pick up stitches from behind the seam, and that will be that then. So round number 6, slip stitch marker, and then repeat this. Knit a stitch with the yarn in front, slip the stitch purlwise, knit the stitch with yarn in front, slip the stitch purlwise. Keep doing that to the end of the round. Round number 7, slip beginning of the round stitch marker, and then repeat this. Slip the first stitch purlwise with the yarn at the back, purl the stitch. Slip the stitch purlwise with the yarn at the back, purl the stitch. And repeat this to the end of the round. The instructions in the pattern tell you to repeat round number 6 one more time, and that's exactly what I did. So this is what we have so far, and this is what the seam looks like at the back or the wrong side. And now the very last row. What we need to do is decrease stitches by half. Slip the stitch marker and purl 2 stitches together. Repeat this to the end of the round. Tighten it up a bit and just keep doing it like that. So purl 2 stitches, purl 2 stitches, and do that to the end of the round, and that will complete the neckline trim. Let me show you what it looks like so far. This is what it will be like. Just decorative double fabric that kind of hides the seam that really doesn't, but you can actually hide it with that double fabric. The neckline trim is finished, and this is what it looks like. There's a decorative double fabric and the rib itself. And now you can proceed with section number 2 if you choose the regular version to create to increase stitches at the back to even it out with the front, or if you want a wider front version, then just move on to section number 3 for back neckline drop and shoulder shaping.